What's up, hockey fans? This is a continuation of our awesome episode with Jimmy Vivona and Wayne Neis. If you haven't seen part one yet, check that out. If you have, sit back and enjoy.
Yeah.
No.
But no, to your point, Jimmy, I just, the game, the game of roller has become more popular again. I don't think it's as popular as it was in the 90s, but it is popular, especially, like I said, on the West Coast. The Narch, these big tournaments. And I do think it is promoting the game of ice. I wish the popularity came back to a bigger degree to what it was in the 90s. At least it's much more inexpensive. It's easier to
Yeah.
play. You have more places. Well,
that's an
The
administrative
reason why
conversation.
I think it has a shot to gain popularity again is because, yes, the points that you're touching upon, that it is less expensive, but now it's not taboo to play roller hockey
Yep,
while training for ice hockey.
I agree.
So I think that you're going to have kids. If roller hockey, look, it's so unfortunate what happened with RHI because you had an innovator like Dennis Murphy who started the ABA, the tennis tour. He was very much ahead of his time, and he had RHI going to the right place. And I don't know all of the all of the circumstances that took place in the demise of it. But RHI was on its way to being a multi-billion-dollar business.
My goodness.
And I think that if the right people were involved with roller hockey today, and I'll put my friend's name, Anthony Flynn, forward, who is an incredible businessman. He owns multiple arenas. He's been around roller hockey for years. He was the last owner of a team I played for in the Professional Inline Hockey Association. He right now is working in a labor of love with Charlie Yoder and CJ Yoder, who is, in my mind, the greatest American roller hockey player
100%,
that
100%.
I ever played against. And he's, a good friend of mine. But they are working so hard to make Pi bigger and grow it. And look, they flew me out there last year. I was there for the championships in Colorado, and we were doing the games were being broadcast, and I was a part of the panel. And I just see what these guys are doing, and it gives me such hope that roller hockey can come back. And as long as the people involved aren't greedy and gain the trust of a major sponsor like what they had the last time around, I really think, Vince, that roller hockey could be reborn and be bigger than ever. I mean, look, I live in Florida now. I'm old. I see pickleball. Pickleball it's huge now. And I think to myself, wow, okay, you got guys that may not be able to make it in professional tennis, but they're incredible pickleball players. I'm watching the pickleball championships on ESPN.
Well,
I think that I could just as easily be watching roller hockey championships.
Jimmy, you're
on
the
ESPN in the
rise
future.
of pickleball kind of mirrors what we experienced in the 90s with the rise of roller hockey.
Yes.
But I want to touch on something that there beyond each of your respective places in the game, you also share a common background, and it's something that you guys both touched on with the affordability of roller hockey. So, Jimmy, you grew up single parent family in NYC. Wayne, you and I were both Southsiders in St. Louis and very blue collar backgrounds.
Yep.
And I think there's a reason why we were all restricted to roller hockey, right? Both
Yep.
economically,
Yeah,
it's what
sure.
what it afforded to us, but there are a lot of kids like us who
Can
are
I-
boxed out of the game. So, Wayne, tell us what it was like for you, as you made your entry into roller hockey and how you found your way into the game.
My brother played, and I played at the boys' club. I played foot hockey,
Yeah.
and then let's see. I can go on, but
Well, do
I
tell us.
just want to say,
Tell them the story you got to take last.
I was a freshman in high school. I was 125 pounds, wire rim glasses, and my brother, who was older than me, of course, he says, let's go to this rink and play some roller hockey. I go, cool. So I was the last kid picked, last person picked. There was, these is against men, 25, 30-year-old men. I was shaking in my boots. The funny part was that was the last time I could pick last. So 13, I just, I I had fun. So ever since then, I just kept playing and skating and kept skating. But
Wayne, tell us, you got to tell us though a little bit more detail about the journey from being a Southsider to being inducted into the St. Louis Hockey Hall of Fame. That's not an honor that's just graciously given,
no,
much less to a roller hockey player from the 70s
Yeah.
and 80s.
yeah, it was all because of my teammates. I'll say that.
Uh,
I'd have a list of teammates. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I
very
think,
modest.
but let me start with this. Ron Beedleston, who's an absolute giant in the sport. He played on a team called the High Cowboys. They have a huge background of roller hockey. And then, of course, I played over a team called Missouri Mules, which was started by Mark Lisi and his brothers. And then we branched off with Greg Garsh to start St. Louis Blast back in '86. And that's when we went on our run. But none of us had any coaching whatsoever. Self-taught roller hockey players.
Well, and just to fill in some gaps, Wayne, the Mules won, I think, 5 national championships in the
I don't
70s.
think that many. I think they won one.
I remember seeing
It
some
might be a
banners.
different league, but I think they won one. But they were very competitive.
Okay,
But
and then the Blast. How many of you did you guys win?
we won 4 in my era, 4 out of 5. Yeah,
That's stunning. That's dynastic.
yeah. Especially when you have to work all day and then pay to practice and then travel and wives and kids and families and jobs. It was it was an undertaking, but we all loved it. That's why, and we all live within 20 miles of each other. It was.
That's awesome.
It's
Well,
it's
for,
amazing.
you
There's
know,
so many
there
people I want to mention, but I don't know if we have the time. But that's Scotty Rupp, of course, phenomenal player. You know
Great player.
quite well, Jimmy. Yes.
Yeah, he's just such a big, a gentle giant. I say with Scotty, you know, not the fastest skater, but you couldn't take the puck from him.
Nope.
You couldn't get
Nope.
in his space to take the puck. He used his body
Yes.
so well and saw the rink so well.
Yes.
Could
Yes.
do everything. Could score also. Great hands from in
Yeah,
close.
he was the first like ice hockey player. We played against ice hockey players. He was like the first ice hockey player that, oh, this guy played ice hockey. He was
Yeah.
played college hockey. He almost made the Blues, and we're like, wow, this guy's good. He was one of the first guys that were like, wow, we need to up our game a little bit. He was one of the first ones that made us open our eyes, like, we better skate a little harder, boys.
Yeah.
and you
That's-
did.
Yeah. He won a title with us, 1 or 2 titles with us. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think
well,
I
Jimmy,
played you guys towards the end, right, Wayne? Like 95?
I
That
was
was
doing, like I said, by 91. I think 92 was my last year.
yeah.
That was
But
national.
still a great team, though, in 95 even, you guys
Oh, yeah,
had.
they had talent. They had probably Kevin Plager there and Jeff Kretzer.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. Greg Garsh still. I could just, yeah. There's Scotty Rupp. There's Mike Keys, Danny Herr. Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Kretzer. He still plays. He still dominates.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just Kevin James. I mean, Gary Davis. I feel bad I'm leaving somebody out, but all those guys.
And yourself.
There's some guys that played against him were friggin' awesome. So
No, yourself included, Wayne. You
I did
have
okay. Yeah, I did okay. There's a kid named
Great
Larry
name.
Lisi. He was a very shifty, very, very good player back in his day. And I'm going to say this name, Dave Morton. He played with the High Cowboys. He was Ronnie Bielson's teammate.
Mm-hmm.
He was a phenomenal player. I mean, I could just go on and on.
well, Wayne, you know, I mean, everybody by now can say that you're a humble and genuine person, but there's another layer of statistics on top of this that really kind of define your role in the game and your position in the game. So it wasn't just that your teams won national championships.
Yeah.
You were the leading scorer of the tournaments, and you were named MVP of what? Every single one of those national titles?
Quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
So
It helped
this is
having
a
Rucker
guy-
and my teammates with me. So
For
That does
for
help.
all the people watching, this is a guy who through the 70s and 80s and into the early 90s was known as the Gretzky equivalent to roller hockey. You know, his legend was nationwide, guys, and you know, I witnessed it as the next generation. I grew up watching Wayne. I had the honor of playing with Wayne later in his career, not on the same teams, but like in pickup. And this is a guy who had the same hands as Gretzky. He saw the floor in the same way. You made the same kinds of passes that nobody else could possibly see. You made every other player better around you, and you beat goalies with accuracy rather than brute force.
Yeah, that was my goal. Be a good teammate. Yeah.
Wayne, I said it before, I'll tell you again. You were just on another level, just happened to be playing in the same game as the, other players on the floor. You were just on another level. And I think it's really important that we kind of define in this podcast that not only you, Wayne, but Jimmy, God, what you were doing on the East Coast is, the equivalent of what Wayne was doing in the Midwest. RHI does not happen without the foundation you guys laid.
Appreciate that. And me growing up in New York, I mentioned the Fort Hamilton League. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I really grew up as a teenager in Staten Island, and there was a rink right by the water, and we thought we had great players there, and we did for that league on Staten Island. But then it's like you say, you start, like when we went to Fort Hamilton, which was the mecca of roller hockey, especially as how rough it was. You had to have a tryout just to get into the league, right? There was an A division and a B division, and the best teams in the whole New York metropolitan area would come to try out to play at Fort Hamilton.
wow.
And nobody started in the A division. So we took our team from Staten Island, all the all-stars from Staten Island. We thought we were going to go there. And, I remember I was the youngest kid on that team, but the older guys that were like, 20 and 21, they thought they were going to go to Fort Hamilton and we were going to beat their all-star team. Well, when we got to Fort Hamilton, we realized very quickly in the exhibition game that, it was a different world, that these were men like what Wayne was talking about. You were now playing against hardened men.
Yeah.
Some of which had a criminal record in Fort Hamilton, I might add.
Done that with some of my guys I played with and against. Steve knows.
So
I got a question for you, Jimmy.
We played one period against the A division champs, and we were losing 5-0 in the first period. But being that the score was only 5-0, they said, "Yeah, you guys make the team. We're going to start you in the B division." And then it took us 3 years to win the B division, and then 3 more years when the famed team, the Canadians, who had a guy by the name of Mikey Ryan, who's also incredibly big in New York roller hockey and really national roller hockey, like what you were saying, Wayne. He grew up. He was a player in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, wow.
Just the best roller hockey shot I've ever seen with a Scotch 88 puck. I've never seen one harder.
I got a question for you, Jimmy.
And he was going to play RHI also. When I went to the tryout in RHI, Mikey definitely would have played. Matter of fact, he got drafted by a team in RHI, and he was already older in 1993. But because he had he had a working job and a family at that point, he didn't go. Me, I was younger. So when I was told, the story for me with RHI was, it wasn't easy to make RHI, especially with all due respect. I was on the 4-wheel skates, right? So when I went for the tryout of RHI, there was hundreds of people that came to this tryout. And the first day, I think they got rid of about 200 people right off the bat that didn't come back the next day. And then if I remember correctly, it was a couple more days. And I found out that, that I made that tryout, that I was one of the players that was going to be selected. But then when I got drafted by the Connecticut Coasters, it's not like I was on the team. I had to go make that team too.
Oh my goodness.
I went to their camp, and their coach was a guy named Jim Magoo. He was Mario Lemieux's line mate with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Whoa.
Matter of fact, his late brother, Mick Magoo, was a referee in the NHL for years. And, Steve knows how RHI was at that point. So I go there to the camp and I'm on 4-wheel roller skates. And Jim Magoo, who's in charge of the team, he brought in a guy, Paul Pashovich, who was on the Russian Red Army team, right? And all these guys are on the inline skates. And I think Jim Magoo is like, what the hell is this kid doing? What the hell kind of skates are those, right? So I had to make that team, which was no picnic, but I did everything possible to make sure that Jim Magoo didn't have a reason to cut me. I was staying late after practice. I was riding the bike, anything possible to stay on the team, because I got the feeling that Jim Magoo just wanted all his professional ice hockey players to be on the team. But the late John Murphy, Dennis Murphy's brother, was the general manager of our team. Steve, you have to tell the story about, you almost coming to be the general manager of that team. But I really think I owe my participation in RHI to John Murphy, because there's no doubt in my mind, John Murphy liked me as a person. And I think he thought I was a pretty good young player. And he saw that the people around the community liked me, because that's one thing I will say. I really believe that while not the best player on my RHI team, I really do think I was the most popular player, because I would stay afterwards and I'd sign autographs and I, would talk to the kids and play with the kids. And I think that John Murphy thought that that was good for the league also.
Absolutely.
At that point, with the league just beginning. And I'm convinced that John Murphy told Jim Magoo, hey, listen, this Vivona kid, if he's good enough to play, he's going to be on the team. Because when I got the word that I made the team, and by the way, keep in mind, I'm the biggest Wayne Gretzky fan on earth. With all due respect, I actually know Wayne, right? So Jim Magoo came up to me and said, all right, Vivona, you made the team. What number do you want? So me being an offensive player my whole life, I said, 99.
Oh.
And he comes over and he touches my face, right? And he starts moving my face around. And he goes,
No.
American, pretty kid. Goes, I don't think the Canadian guys are going to like you wearing 99. He said, we're going to give you 9. And I said, okay, sure. And he told me right there, he said, listen, I don't need you to score goals. I have guys for that. Your job is going to be to make sure that the other team doesn't score when you're on the rink. He said, and maybe you'll kill some penalties. I don't think he trusted the skates.
Right.
I really am convinced that he just didn't like the skates, because everybody on the inline skates was faster, but I believe I had better balance and better control on the quad skates. So he made me a defenseman, which, I'll do anything to stay on the team. But like Wayne, I was an offensive player who, was always the leading scorer as a forward. So playing defense was new, but I told him, I said, yeah, I could do it. No problem. And I think it took him probably about 4 or 5 games before he trusted me. And even at that time, Joe, people were coming in. Steve will tell you, it was like a hospice, because people were, they were disappearing and new people were coming in every week. There's not even a team picture of the Connecticut Coasters for RHI, because people kept, getting cut, sent away. They would fly new guys in. The guys didn't practice well, didn't look right. They got cut or put on the taxi squad. So it was the first half of the season, I was just wanting to survive. I didn't want to make any mistakes. I was playing so defensive, to make sure that the other team, didn't score, which was a task in itself, if you remember how open RHI was as a league. So it was, it was challenging, but certainly a time I'll never forget. And God bless John Murphy. I owe him everything.
I have a question for you.
That started my pro career from there in roller hockey.
I have a question for you, Jimmy. Did you never play ice hockey, or you play like when you got older?
I played when I got older, but it's like, it's like what you were saying before. In the early 1970s, when I was a little kid,
Oh, same here.
there weren't many ice hockey rinks around.
Okay, let me
And
ask,
my mom wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway. So it was just so much easier for her. I mean, God bless her. My mom worked 2 jobs. My dad, unfortunately, he was literally a hero in the Vietnam War,
well,
but he suffered all kinds of post-traumatic stress, which they didn't even know was post-traumatic stress back then.
yeah.
So my mom couldn't have him around.
Oh,
So
boy.
she really raised me by herself, but she was athletic and she knew I loved hockey. And, from the age of 3, she got me a pair of skates, oversized gloves, and she always made sure that, that I was able to play roller hockey somewhere.
So did you have anybody, like when I was playing quite well, I would have guys ask me, they didn't know me. They go, "Who'd you play ice hockey for? Where'd you play ice hockey at? Who's
Yeah,
your coach? Where'd you play ice hockey at?" I'm like, school you,
no one.
school you.
That's
Yep.
right.
Really argue.
Maybe except Scotty and Danny Herr. It's like we didn't have any coaching. We just threw sticks in the middle and said, "Let's play."
That's, and for in New York, look, even Joe mentioned it before, and he's younger than us. Kids playing in the street or whatnot. You are on your own.
Yes.
See, that's the one thing I love about roller hockey. It's a cult sport in a way, right? I mean, but the loyalty to the sport of the players and the people involved is beyond reproach. It's there's just such a dedication. That's why I think it could really be reborn again. But yeah, I got lucky, Wayne, in that when I turned 18 and that league in Staten Island that I was telling you about, I also coached little kids who were 8 to 12
Oh,
years
that's
old.
cool.
But I got lucky because one of the kids I coached, his father was the genius coach I told you about, Paul Spinelli, who coached me. And really, to be quite honest, I learned about coaching from him because the kids that we coached from 8 to 12 years old, it was all Coach Spinelli. I was along for the ride learning. We won 3 straight championships in that league as a coach because of him. And he taught me more about hockey.
Wow.
Later on, the kids in Pi-Ha that I played with, like Sean Sullivan, who is Team USA player, and like, Chavo and all these kids, they gave me a nickname, the Professor, because they said I was a smart player. But I tell them that I learned more about hockey playing for Paul Spinelli and being at his house watching Ranger games on TV and him teaching me the intangibles about the game. That's why I was able to hang around so long because number one, my idol was Wayne Gretzky. So, I really tried to plagiarize him on the rink, like, just like Wayne did.
Same here. Yes.
But, learning also the little things about catching people at the end of a shift, the matchups and stuff like that. It was this coach, Paul Spinelli, that taught that to me. And then as I got to be an older player, after Major League roller hockey, and I started playing in the Professional Inline Hockey Association, which still exists, I had guys on my team, they were kids. I was the oldest player on the team. But those are the little things that I would try to, show them and push on them that we need to incorporate that into our scheme of how we were going to win. And I think that's why I was able to hang around so long, playing against different generations
Yes.
of roller hockey players coming up. That's why I have such a big appreciation for a guy like Wayne, who obviously I heard of, but was, before me, before I got like on the national scene. And, now I get kids, I swear, still today, I get kids that, reach out to me on Facebook because they look at me as like, a pioneer and,
So cool.
they ask me what they should do. Like,
That's cool.
they're asking advice. So I'm always happy to share that type of stuff.
Very cool.
And that's why I really hope that, Steve and Joe and, Vince, what you're involved in, I'm the biggest fan of the sport of roller hockey. I
Likewise.
really want to see
Yeah.
it be successful. And I want to see someone like you, Joe, who, came up with this, knowing that there would be a market for this type of, this type of product. I, I hope your business takes off with what you guys are doing. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Though I do have one complaint, Joe. There's no shorts to this jersey. I noticed on the other coasters uniform, you have
The
the
other
green
colorway.
shorts. Yeah, when you make the purple shorts, I want a pair of purple shorts that have my number 9 on the Connecticut coasters, and I'm going to ask you to send that to me.
All right, we got it. We got it.
Well, guys,
I
we've
love
talked a
hearing
lot
that.
about what roller hockey was like in the two respective markets, and we haven't touched on anything that was going on in California with like the Coho Hosers and Paul Chapey and John Black and those guys.
I remember
But
Paul Chapey.
yeah,
Love Paul
yeah,
Chapin.
Yes.
Love him.
yeah.
Is he still with us?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure, to
I
be
know
quite
No,
honest,
he is.
Wayne. Yeah,
He is.
good.
I
Will you
spoke
tell
to
him we
I
said
spoke
hello
to Mr.
if you ever contact him?
I spoke to Mr. Chapey about maybe just a little more than a year ago.
Good.
So yeah, and by the way, just so you know, Paul Chapey, Fort Hamilton roller hockey
There you
player.
go.
And I'm
Really?
telling you, that's why he always loved me,
Wow.
because he grew up in New York.
Yep.
Playing in the Fort Hamilton League,
Did
and
not
he'll
know that.
validate all of my stories about Fort Hamilton. It was the toughest, best league in the country
Well, he brought
for
that style.
decades.
He brought that style to the Hosers.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
He
You
did.
know, I always wondered why Mr. Chapey liked me as a younger player, and then I found out that he was a Fort Hamilton player, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's got to be it.
Well, you
So
go, guys,
he's great.
between, what you guys have described that was happening in St. Louis and happening in the streets of New York and the popularity of roller hockey, as we're sitting here talking, it dawned on me, I don't think there's an accident, or it's an accident, that the St. Louis Vipers and the New Jersey Rock and Rollers had
Mhm.
2 of the top 5 attendances in RHI.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
had markets that understood roller hockey.
Yes.
And we had we weren't just hockey markets, but we had roller hockey players. And I just,
You're so right, because the game that we played in St. Louis, I think it was the Fleet Center when I played in RHI, and they had a very, very big crowd there. And they were roller hockey savvy
yes, they were.
in St. Louis. So I saw that for sure. And certainly with the New Jersey Rock and Rollers, I mean, I think I told you, Steve, if I didn't have my career just starting as a stockbroker, which began in August of '94, I would have loved to have played on that team too. The GM Bobby Crawford, I had some experience with playing against him in Long Island. So, he liked me a lot. He wanted to bring me out there for that team. And John Murphy actually wanted me to play on that team in New Jersey because I was from Staten Island. So,
Yeah.
it would have been a perfect fit. Looking back on it now, I wish I could have done it. But if I did, maybe I wouldn't have met my wife walking down the streets of Manhattan after work. So I guess I'm happy with the way things turned out.
Wayne, did you stay involved in the game at all after you stopped
Not too
playing?
much. Once I had my son, he played, and I mainly worked. But Greg Garth took the helm. Of course, we started the team together, and then he had a Blast Kids team. They had a 10-year span. They have 2 to 4 teams through that span, and they've won. I couldn't tell you how many championships these Blast Kids have won from now and from 1993. It's amazing. It's amazing. And the coaches they had, he wants me to mention this: Dougie Robinson, Chris Marchand, Joe Wiest, Vito Marino, and Donnie Hager. Don Hager was one hell of a coach. And there's another kid I want to mention, Jimmy Owens. That guy is roller hockey through and through as a goalie and as a coach to these young kids.
Yeah. Wayne, what was it like, going to Viper games?
It was awesome.
Well, did you feel like, you could still suit up, or
No,
what was
not
going through
really.
your brain?
By that time, my back was kind of getting bulky because I had skated like 8-9 years straight. I mean, 12 months out of the year, and I wrestled. And I think it kind of took its toll by then, plus the transition to inlines. I never played ice hockey. I goofed around playing it, but I could just tell that I wasn't physically able, but I could tell by my hands I could have done it, but I just wasn't, I couldn't commit to it because I work construction. So,
Yeah.
but I practiced with them a little bit, but I was on quads, and I once we lost in 91 and 92, I'm like, I had a good run. So that was kind of how I ended it. It was
Do
an
you
unreal
skate
experience.
anymore?
What's that?
Do you skate anymore?
No, I stopped, and I've got a neck issue, of course, as you guys can see. I've got a disease now called spondylitis, which is not life-threatening, but I haven't skated in 20 years, which I miss it every day.
Yeah.
I miss it every day.
Right.
But it
A
was
great
all
player.
worth it. It was all worth it.
Great players. Any of the St. Louis guys, will tell you Wayne was a great player. You talk to Scotty Rupp, I mean, again, I got to play against Scotty in RHI and in 95 and, we don't speak often, but I
Right.
certainly remember those times. And
Yeah.
Wayne's always on the list of great players that Scotty played with for sure. And Joe, look, you're on Long Island. Steve, you should know Long Island's a hotbed for roller hockey. They have a team called the Mission Snipers that
Right.
was born out of
Did you say
Long Island.
did you say
Timmy
snipers?
McManus, who runs the
Snipers?
State Wars. That team was born out of Long Island. I knew all those kids. Ziggy Marshall, Derek Kern, all those kids.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. They've won numerous national titles as well. Great teams.
Well,
So,
Jimmy, those are
and
the
that's
kids.
like right in your age group too, I think, Joe. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I was good enough for them, but I grew up playing ice. I mean, it's a very similar story to you guys. Just couldn't afford ice grew up playing roller
Yeah.
since, before kindergarten. Ice, I didn't start playing ice till 6th grade, 7th grade when my parents could afford it. And by that point, I was already such a better skater on roller skates. So I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with roller. I'm way better at it. And I was pretty
Yeah.
small as a kid too. So ice a little more physical. But had my dad was the coach actually of our high school team that played at Skate Safe. And funny enough, we named our company Bench Clears after like a bench clearing brawl. And we had one story
Yeah.
against Deer Park, which I used to play at John J. McMahon, like an outdoor concrete floor rink all growing up. And it was in Deer Park.
my.
And we used to play all those kids a bunch, and all the coaches were involved. And we played that team. So I knew a lot of the kids from the team and the coaches and stuff like that. And that game, I was a real small defenseman, but I had a huge defenseman on my line. So if anyone touched me, he would just bump him with his belly and they would go down. But that game, something happened. They hit our goalie and I started fighting with some kid. The other big kid came in. That game, we had a full bench clearing brawl. Both teams cleared the bench. They called the game halfway through the second period. I got suspended for 3 games. I'm like, So then I just became since my dad was the coach, I was the assistant coach for a couple games on the bench.
Right.
Couldn't suit up, but just really funny. Yeah. So it's
Wow.
small world. I mean,
Hey,
but
Vince, let me ask you, how big is your jersey collection?
So
Uh,
my goal when I first started was just I got it around COVID time. Now for years I would always get on eBay and every once in a while I just looked stuff up and I was just these are cool. And then for some reason during COVID I work in restaurants, so of course we were closed, we just don't take out. And I'd seen somebody had posted that there was a documentary about pro roller hockey. So I started watching. I was like, man. So I started looking at the jerseys again, and I found, like your wife, I'm a big Tampa Bay fan just because I visited Tampa in '94 to see my grandfather. He took me to a game, so that's etched in my brain. So I found 2 just game issue jerseys. I was like, man, these are pretty cool. So I just started looking around. 1 turns into 2, 2 turns into 3, and now I'm like, these are actually really sweet. I would say I'm probably 5 away from having at least 1 jersey from each team.
Oh my.
So now I'm kind of at a point where I'd like to try to get a home and away from each team. Still very difficult to find. I've talked to several players. Some still have their jerseys.
Are you talking about RHI teams?
RHI and Major League. I try to get them both.
Me?
Do
you really?
So
do you have coasters and the New York Riot?
Hold on, I can't. There we go.
In Major League. Do you have those or no?
I got my Coasters jersey right here behind me.
Oh, you got a Coasters jersey behind you?
That's Jim McKegg's jersey.
Robbie
McKegg. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that guy Robbie McKegg. Real quick, I'll give you a quick Kegger story. He's a crazy Canadian kid, right? So I think he had a bizarre number, something like 612 penalty minutes in 1 year in the East Coast League, right? Ice hockey. So I'm out with him. I'll give you a couple of quick RHI stories that it's hilariously funny. So I'm out with the team RHI, and Robbie McKegg, he has no aversion to fighting. We once got into a brawl. Matter of fact, we got into a brawl with the St. Louis Vipers in the hotel
I heard about
in
that one.
Connecticut.
Yep.
My God, what was the name of that monster on their team?
I know his name. Kenny Ford.
Oh, what's that?
Kenny Ford?
Kenny.
Kenny Ford. Yeah, that monster.
Big boy.
He came down, and before you know it, him and Robbie McKegg, are going at it in the lobby. And, he, what do you call it? He punched Robbie McKegg like kind of early, and Berkeley Holden came and hit Kenny Ford, and they're all rolling around on the hotel floor in Connecticut.
It was in the paper
Thank
here,
God.
yes.
And keep in mind, the whole St. Louis Vipers team is upstairs in their rooms. Kenny Ford, this animal, like came in. I don't know where he was, but it was late, and he's, I'm sure, going upstairs, to pack it in for the night. Thank God. So after this big fight happens, Ken Ford goes upstairs, and the whole St. Louis Vipers team comes downstairs, right? Now, I'm 22 years old, not the biggest kid, I'm looking around for the goalie. I'm looking to find the goalie in the melee, if there's a melee that's going to start. Thank goodness, Bernie Federko, the great Bernie Federko.
Awesome player.
Who,
Unreal.
I owe Bernie Federko something too. I'll tell you in a second. He comes downstairs in the middle of it. And just so you know, Jim Magoo, who was also NHL alumni, right? Here's how you separate Jim Magoo from Bernie Federko. When the fight started out, Jim Magoo, who is supposed to be an authority figure, he's in there giving like Ken Ford like little kicks, right? Bernie Federko comes downstairs and immediately stops it. Stops, like, make sure that a brawl doesn't happen like in the middle of the hotel. And I think Bernie Federko was so respected.
Oh, yes.
That the guys on both teams, I was very thankful because, I didn't have to get involved with any one of those monsters. But Bernie Federko squashed it. And Bernie Federko actually did something really nice for me. The game that we played in St. Louis was televised, and I scored a goal that game. And after the season, I called the St. Louis Vipers because I knew the game was televised, and I was wondering if there was any way I could get a tape of the game. And would you believe it that Bernie Federko calls me a week later, and he says, "Hey, Jimmy, this is Bernie Federko. I have a tape of the game where you scored. What's your address? I'll send it to you." Bernie Federko, what such a classy person. So still today, I have that game in storage of me scoring, I think, my first ever professional goal.
Wow.
In that game.
You got the
And
puck?
Bernie Federko,
you get to keep the
I
puck?
have a tape of it because of him.
Jimmy, you get to keep the puck?
I did. I
Cool.
have the puck too.
Very cool.
And by the way, I didn't want to look like a jackass, Wayne, because it was just another goal in the game, and I didn't want to grab the puck for myself. I figured somebody might have cross-checked me in the face if I did that for
Yeah.
in a roller hockey game, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone was scoring. But I kept track of the puck, and I asked the official, quietly, if I could have it, and he gave it to me, and I gave it to our trainer. I said, "Just do me a favor, hold this for me." So
cool.
I have that puck also in storage. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jimmy,
definitely.
Vince is already calculating what he can trade for that puck. He's already doing. I can see him.
Bernie's nothing but class.
So anyway, so that's Robbie McKegg. Now we're out at a bar, and Robbie McKegg goes like this. He's got a beer in his hand. He goes, "Hey, Vivona," he said, "listen, I get a few of these in me." He goes, I may be looking to roll somebody. He goes, if I get into a fight, he goes, just take your pretty little self off to the side and watch the show, he says. Those Canadian kids were not shy about fighting.
Wow.
You know, there was another guy on our team. You guys have to hear this story. A guy named Robbie Hershek, who was a great player.
Yep.
Great player. Yeah, I think he went to NHL camps as a player. And, you know, very talented professional ice hockey player. And he was on our team. And, you know, he's a built kid. So we're in Miami, and there's a pool table. It's a nightclub, but there's a pool table of a bunch of guys, you know, a bunch of Spanish guys that are playing pool. And, you know, they're playing for money, right? So Robbie McKegg's Robbie Hershek, he's drunk already, but he goes over and he wants to play a game. So the guy goes, yeah, you know, but you know, it's $20. We're playing for money. So Robbie goes, okay, that's fine. He goes, you want to play for 40? So, you know, Rob's drunk. The Spanish guy goes, yeah, I'll play you for 40. So Rob goes, okay, but, you know, I'm a little drunk. You know, the guy says, don't worry about it. I'll give you the break. So he lets Robbie Hershek have the break. Now, keep in mind, there's a bunch of guys who are obviously friends with this Spanish guy, and they're all around, you know, $40 watching them play. The Spanish guy never got to touch the pool cue. Robbie Hershek made every ball on the table, right? And I could hear, as he's making these ridiculous shots, I could hear the Spanish guys going, white boys pulling the hustle. He's just saying, right? Robbie makes every shot on the table, and they just look at him. Robbie says, it was luck. Do you want to play again? He says to the guy. I was like, I'm getting out of here. So Robbie then informed me that he had a pool table in his basement for years as a kid. So I think he had a bit of an advantage there.
Solid.
Bunch of characters play roller hockey is my point, you know, especially
Yeah,
those
yeah.
Canadian kids.
Yeah.
So
All right.
lots of fun though, lots of great memories.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing some of those memories with us. I mean, I'm sure you got so many more. We might have to do this again and get like a part 2 and 3 and 4 going, because I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg there. But I guess Wayne kind of
Well-
stepped out, but would like to just kind of say thanks to you guys
Well-
for hopping on here today, lending us your time.
Joe, thank you. Thank you for having me. And it was a lot of fun. Steve, thank you for arranging it. You know, I think you guys are a great tandem. And you know, I think guys like me and Wayne, you know, we're happy to participate in something like this. We're, you know, older and remember the old days
Yes.
of roller hockey, and it's got a great history. And Steve is a lifer in the sport
Oh
as
my
well.
God, yes.
And I really hope that your business takes off, and it takes off with the sport of roller hockey also, because there'd be nothing that makes me happier than to see like a league like the Professional Inline Hockey Association, where you have great people who are involved in it and they're really trying to make a go of it. But, you know, I would love to see the sport take off with guys like you and them, and get roller hockey to where it should be now.
I
Well,
think
I will
in
tell
my
you,
opinion,
you know, and Steve and I, we've talked about this, and I know we're cutting it close, but and you touched on this earlier, Jimmy. You know, there's unfortunately still a greed factor in the game. I think there's too many tournaments, there's too many big wigs, there's too much money involved for everybody to kind of come together and say, let's do this right again. And I think that is the biggest challenge right now for getting this game back where it needs to be, with one real good solid. I think you'd still have tournaments, but there's just too much right
In
now.
order to take it to the level that you're talking about, I think Steve will probably speak to this also. I don't want to take up so much more of your time. I can't believe that we've been on for over an hour already. It feels like a few minutes. But I think what you need is a big sponsor And you do need the right people, like you were talking about, Vince, that won't get attached to the greed, that are going to let this grow the way it should have 30 some odd years ago. It was really on its way and they blew it. If they do it the right way and they have the right people involved, hopefully they've learned from their mistakes. They have to gain the trust of a major sponsor, just like the pickleball. Pickleball has these sponsors now, and a little bit of money is coming into the sport. And, people could say they're professional pickleball players. You're a professional athlete. I think that's awesome. That can be done with roller hockey. We just need people like Steve and the people I mentioned to land that one sponsor, that one really big sponsor that can buy into it and attract other people, and then do it the right way. And I'll be the first to say, if there's anything I could do to help, I'm always available.
Well, guys, I think that what's been so important about this podcast is that we understand the history of RHI, because it was so important in all of our lives, and it was so important in the landscape of sports, not only in the 90s, but into the 2000s. And to your point, it's given birth to a whole new plateau of hockey popularity. But if we're to move forward in this industry, we all have to understand where we came from. And today was about understanding the greats, some of the greats that gave the roots to Roller Hockey International. And Jimmy and Wayne, that's you guys. And the guys that you mentioned, and your teammates and your coaches, and even the players that came before you. And so, as this podcast continues to improve and continues to bring on new guests, it's helpful for Vince and Joe and me and even Adam and even our future guests to understand that it started with you guys, and without you guys and all the greatness that you brought to the game, we might not be talking about RHI today. So
thank you so much, Steve. That's really, really nice of you to say.
It's 100% true. And I'm going to say, on a personal level, Wayne was a model, not just teammate, but a model character for many kids from the South Side and many kids from St. Louis. We understood that through the efforts of Wayne and through the Mules and through the Blast, that there was a wider world for us out there. My involvement in hockey might not have happened had I not crossed paths with Wayne as a young kid. I'm being very honest there. I mean, all deference and all respect involved, because the light bulb went on for me when I saw what these guys were doing.
That's awesome. That's what we have to put forward to this next generation. We need to make sure, and I really do try to impress upon the kids like John Chavo, who's a phenomenal player, Tyler Kraft, PJ DiMartino. I was around these kids, last year when I went there for the championships, and they are great, great players, and they're great young men. And I think they buy into the roller hockey scene also. And, they're probably the two best players in the world right now for roller hockey. So if we can continue to impress upon them, and they're really great kids. I had conversations with both of them, but it's their time now. And I think it's important that the older guys like us, remind them their responsibility to the sport, which I believe that they embrace. But, if there is something at the end of the rainbow for the young kids growing up today to be the next, CJ Yoder, Tyler Kraft, Wayne Neis,
Maroon, right.
it would really be great. And it's now, their time to show these little kids that, there could be something for them at that point. And we need to make sure that happens. And I think in the roller hockey community, I think the players do embrace that, because like I was saying earlier, it's right now maybe a cult sport, but everybody buys into it. The players and the people like you guys who are involved. So I think roller hockey has a real chance, and I'm looking forward to seeing great things in the future.
Well, guys,
and you guys being a part of it.
After today, we might have to convince Joe to do a throwback edition of the Mules and the Cyclones and the Hosers and the Blast.
There we go.
And give us a commemorative line so guys really understand where we came from.
The Blast
Yeah,
stuff would sell. I'm telling you.
You
The
know it.
Blast merch would sell.
I'm only a phone call away,
There
and
you go.
you know, I have New York people that are still around, and you know, they definitely have some great merchandise. I mean, I think I have my Bauer Cyclones jersey, one of them right in my closet there.
There we
So,
go.
I want
There we
these.
go.
Awesome.
Look at that.
Who would?
Look at that.
there you go. Okay.
That is awesome.
Well, guys,
So,
listen,
it's
you know,
cool.
we've had an amazing conversation. This has completely lived up to my hopes and dreams of being able to connect the dots, and I can't thank you guys enough for honoring us and with your stories and with all of your contributions to the game. Thank
It's
you.
basically my honor, and I'd hope you guys will reach out to Ron Bielsten, who's an absolute god in this sport. Jimmy, you ever heard of Ron Bielsten? I think he
sure.
coached.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course.
I've got a sheet here with his name on it. 1980, 81, 82. What most valuable player, Ron Bielsten.
Yeah.
He wouldn't tell you that, but I'm telling you that.
That's
He's
awesome.
free now, but he ain't gonna tell you that.
Let's keep this going,
Yeah.
guys. You know,
We will.
let's keep this sport. Let's get it to where it belongs.
This is
Love it.
all part of
And
it, guys. This is all part of it.
thank you guys so much for having me. I really
Boys.
enjoyed it. Like I said, if you know, you guys ever have any ideas, you know, I'm always just a phone call away. And Wayne, really nice to see you. Vince,
You, sir.
same thing. Joe, keep in
Joe.
touch. I expect that Connecticut Coasters stuff. And by the way, I just want you to know, I wanted to get a Connecticut Coasters hoodie and I didn't know if it would be available with my number, right? With my
Yeah,
number and name on it. I don't think it was
We
an
can do that
option.
for you.
So if that happens, please, if you could send me one of those with the shorts, I would be so
You got it.
appreciative.
I'll
Awesome.
follow
All right,
up with you
guys.
on that for
Nice
sure.
meeting
Have
all
a
you
great
guys.
night, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
It's been
you,
an honor
guys.
having
Thank
you
you
on.
so much,
Take
guys.
care.